You wanted the best. You've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Folks, Chris Voss here from thechrisvossshow.com. And ladies and gentlemen, there are ladies things that makes it official. Welcome to the big show. For 16 years, 2,800 episodes of bringing the Chris Voss Show, the most amazing minds, the most amazing people, the most amazing authors come with you, share their stories of life, how they can make your life better, and all that good stuff. And then, of course, along with amazing guests, there's an idiot with a mic who tells jokes. Refer the show to your family, friends, and relatives, because if that didn't convince you, I don't know what will. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, linkedin.com/Chris Voss. Chris Voss won the TikTok Eddie, and what is it, youtube.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. Today we have an amazing young man on the show. We're going to be talking about his ways that he can help businesses be better and all that good stuff. And you'll probably learn some law stuff, some legalese law stuff, maybe, as we go along. We'll learn some Latin on the show, maybe that too. We have Matthew Fornaro on the show with us today. He is attorney at law in Coral Springs, Florida. Since 2003, he served businesses and individuals through his Coral Springs, Parkland, and the greater Broward County community as a trusted business law attorney. His practice focuses on complex commercial litigation, where he represents clients in matters such as contract disputes, commercial and residential real estate conflicts, antitrust, unfair competition claims, trade secret protection, and landlord-tenant disputes. His practice spans a wide range of businesses and civil matters. He advises clients on IP law, UCC and creditor disputes, employment litigation, and representative owners, homeowners, and condominium associations. He has extensive experience in customer finance and creditor rights, including collections, post-judgment recovery, as well as handling escalated legislation. Today's Monday for me, evidently, for the brain. Beyond litigation, Matthew assists business with the drafting and revision of critical legal documents, guiding entrepreneurs through the formation of business entities, and ensuring all required documentation is properly structured from the start. We'll probably talk about why that's important. Matthew, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, Chris. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for coming. Give us any .coms, websites. Where do you want people to get to know you better on the internet?
Sure. Go to fornarolegal.com, which is my last name, FORNAROLEGAL.com. It's got all my stuff on there, links, all my contact information, all my goodies. They're all there.
Matthew, you ever considered radio with that voice?
I sometimes have, but,
I'm sure people have told that to you, right?
I'm waiting for the right opportunity. It's only been 48 years, so...
You can start a podcast for your attorney law service. Give us an overview of what you do there and how you do it.
Sure. I've been an attorney since 2003. I've had my own firm for 11 years, and we focus on helping small businesses, entrepreneurs, and startups with their legal needs, whether it's litigation or transactional. And we represent all kinds of businesses, whether virtual, web-based, app-based, brick-and-mortar-based, and through all phases of their life from before they start to after they end.
With the work that you do, who is your ideal client, and are you relegated only to Florida?
Sure. So my ideal client is obviously, like I just said, business, preferably a small business, but I work with businesses of all size, entrepreneurs and startups at any point in their business life. Preferably, it would be great if they could start out before they get in business, because we can probably do the most good and help them the most there. But I represent them all throughout the course of their life, and I represent businesses. I'm licensed in Florida, DC, and New York, but I have clients all over the country.
So you can serve them all. And so people come to you, they want to start their businesses, or they're entrepreneurs, they need to get going. Why is it important to be properly structured in the right business entity from the start, as we mentioned in the bio?
Sure. When you start out in business, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of founders, startups, creators, whatever you want to call them, they're very excited to get into business and they want to start right away and start doing stuff. But you have to use a lot of due diligence. You have to use a lot of caution. You have to do a lot of strategic planning and thinking things out, because you want to make sure before you get started that you have all the right foundations in place. And obviously one of the biggest ones is having the right business organization, because if you have the wrong business organization, you're going to have legal problems, you're going to have financial problems, you're going to have tax problems, you're going to have a bunch of liability issues and things like that. So what happens is when clients come to me, as part of the foundation process, I go through with them and we figure out what the best business organization is for them based on their circumstances. And I also work with, preferably, their accountant, or if they don't have an accountant, we'll bring in an accountant to figure out from a tax standpoint or from a financial standpoint also what's the best business organization for them. Because legally you can do it a couple different ways, but financially, if you do it the wrong way, you're going to get killed on your taxes. It's, the most important thing before you even start is make sure you pick the right thing before going forward.
Yeah. Definitely. I've been giving counsel to someone in my family who is wanting to start their very first business, and they're going into it with a partner, which is always going to end well.
No.
I love your answer, dude. You just go, no. Just emphatically, no. That's it. And it sounds like you've been through some experiences like mine, and I'm sure in your attorney work you've seen lots of battles between partners. But I explained that to him. The setup is important. For most of my life being an entrepreneur, starting at 18, I built companies to be empires. I wanted to have a cluster of empire of companies that would last in perpetuity, that I could retire with. And sadly, life doesn't work that way. And there's a 2008 housing crisis that brings the economy to a halt, wipes my empire off the map, and my partnerships betrayed. But since then, I found out by having a lot of great authors and thought leaders like yourself on the show who educated me on building for an exit, and how at the beginning, when you're starting up a company, you decide, are you building for perpetuity or are you building for an exit? Are you building something you can easily sell? And if you don't set it up right as a entity, C Corp, S Corp, LLC, partnership, whatever it is, you've got to think about that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, you got to, it's all part of the game plan from the inception through the end. So you want to make sure that you have a mechanism where even if you don't know if you want to get out later on or if you want to continue on, you got to make sure you have an off ramp built into your operating documents or your governing documents that says how you do it, just in case you want to do it.
Yeah. That, and I get all these solicitations to buy the Chris Voss Show podcast these days. I think it's the new scam or something. But don't name your company after your personal name if you're considering selling it in the future.
No, you can sell it. You just may have to,
you have to stay on forever.
So.
Chris Voss used to be here podcast. Anyway, what are some other things that you're seeing in the marketplace that maybe are some leading topics of mistakes entrepreneurs are making, or maybe things you find yourself helping entrepreneurs a lot in your practice?
Sure. So it goes back to a little bit of what we were just talking about. They just jump right into business and don't do the necessary due diligence. So one of the first things they should do is, before they even start, is to plan out everything, map everything out, and have a written business plan before they even spend any money or do anything. And a lot of people skip that step. So that's an important step. Then the next thing is what we were just talking about, picking the right business organization. You have to bring in professionals to assist you. And that's what the professionals do: a business law attorney, an accountant, a commercial banker, a commercial insurance agent. These are all professionals who are there to help you deal with their particular niches or issues so that you can focus on the business and make business decisions. So a lot of people kind of skip that, or they kind of try to put that hat on themselves and do it themselves. Then picking the business organization, they somehow pick the business organization based on what their mom told them, or based on
their barber,
based on something they saw off the internet. And, they don't put in the right governing documents. They just go online to their Secretary of State website and just register and think they're in business. Yeah. And then going forward, they don't have contracts in place for any time they have a relationship with another business or another person, which governs the relationship. So sometimes they just skip over that and do things on a handshake or not. And they don't have terms of service. They don't have disclaimers. They don't have, various things in place. And, sometimes it works out and they go along and things don't happen, but sometimes they do. And there's very bad consequences when they do. So those are a lot of repeated issues that I see that a lot of businesses and a lot of entrepreneurs get themselves into because they don't do the due diligence or the follow through or the necessary steps because, they're so eager to get into business. They just want to get going and they kind of step over that stuff and then it comes back to bite them on later on.
It really does. You've got to have those foundational elements, contracts, things in writing. You mentioned the handshaking. I was advising someone else starting their business recently, and they said, hey, and I'm just giving counsel from a business aspect, entrepreneur, not legal counsel. Let me make that clear because I'm not an attorney, but Matthew is, and
I am.
Yeah.
I'm just
one on the show.
Friendly advice, not legal advice, but okay.
And we got all the disclosures out of the way now. But I was like, so what's the deal on this company? How do you get paid? The other guy has an LLC, and I'm going to work with him. And I'm like, is your name on the LLC? And he goes, no, we're going to start this thing, and we just decided that it's going to be a 70-30 split. He's going to take 70, and I'm going to take 30. And I go, of what?
Yeah.
Every dollar that comes in. That's not the way a business works. There's expenses.
No.
And then if you make a profit, it might be a 70-30 split or whatever the hell you decide to do. But everything's on handshake, everything's on whatever. Let me ask you this. Do you agree with this term? And I'm pretty sure I didn't make this up. I'm pretty sure I picked it up somewhere. You never know who your partners are, or sometimes who your wife is, until the money is on the table, right? That's when you find out. That's when you find out what your partners, because some people, they see a very small amount of money that trickles in at the beginning of a business deal, and they'll lose their fucking minds.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know who your partner is till the money's on the table or the money's missing from the table. So you don't know who it is. I mean, everyone goes into business with the best of intentions. I mean,
they do. Everyone's hugging and kissing, and
no one's in there like, maybe we'll give it a shot. Maybe it works out. If not, I hate you. No one's like that. Everyone's buddy, and everyone's got the best of intentions. But life happens, and things happen. People are not who they think you think they are, or they think you are, or, situations change. And if you don't have it in writing, it doesn't exist. So your boys with the 70-30 split, it's a he said deal.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even if they have stupid text messages or whatever, claiming that shows what's going on, it would be great if it was reduced to an operating agreement. But I mean, it happens.
And I learned a long time ago, I wrote about this in my book, Beacons of Leadership. If you don't own it and control, in my opinion, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but when you build big companies, you have to bring on a lot of people and you have to share ownership. But to me, I just learned the hard way after partners over 35 years of business and owning companies, dozens of companies, that if I don't own it or have the controlling 51+% interest in it, I don't do it. I don't invest in it. I don't play in it. Unless I'm the final boss, I just don't do it. I've had too many things where, people see $5,000 show up on the table in the first month or whatever and lose their fucking minds. You think that it was a large amount of money for them. And then the greed comes out, or, we need to renegotiate this or whatever. But having it in writing, that's so important. Putting down who owns what stock. And the other thing is too, is if you don't own an interest in the LLC or the company, the C Corp, the S Corp, whatever it is you're joining, you're just an employee. You can be fired without cause probably at any time, especially if you're kind of operating without any sort of applied contract maybe. Yeah.
I mean, unless, it's in writing, and unless you're a member of an LLC and you have, your membership certificates, or unless you're a shareholder in a corporation and you have shares, unless you're a partnership and you have a percentage of the partnership, you're just there at will. I mean, in a state like Florida, where I am, where it's at will employment, which just means you can be fired at any time for any reason. They can show you the door anytime they want. There's no obligation to keep you around for any reason, unless you have some kind of equity interest in something. You're gone at someone's whim.
Yeah. And I mean, like I said, when people see that money on the table, they go, I have to split this with this idiot. I own this company. And yeah, I just learned a long time ago. I live by that rule. I mean, it's a little hard to do that if you have some big company where you're having to sell on Silicon Valley to, VCs and stuff. Clearly they're going to take an interest in the company. But in that case, I would have to obscure that rule. But for the most part, I've just learned it's such a nightmare to deal with partners, especially if they don't have a business acumen. That really leads me to a point I need to bring into more of my counsel. Probably something important to talk about here is the acumen of the other person. I'm so many times, I'm the person who started dozens of companies and everything that we've done and built. And usually if I'm going into business with something, they usually don't have my business sort of acumen. They've never built multi-million-dollar companies. They've never managed that a large of money. They never had thousands of employees. And so usually they're on my carry list. I'm not, how important do you think that is to, when you go into business, to look at your partner and go, how much business acumen they have compared to me? Who's the lead in this situation? And do I need to assess for their flaws?
I personally think that's important. I've seen it across the spectrum of people with, their partner or business affiliate, whatever you want to call them, knows a lot about business and knows nothing about business. And, some of that can be overcome based on if the other person's bringing in money or bringing in, sweat equity or bringing in a lot of enthusiasm or a lot of know-how. Mm-hmm. But if you just kind of got a dud as your man next to you, you're going to have problems. So, that's why you want to have everything in writing. You want to make sure that if you're the brains behind the operation and someone's coming in with you, what are they coming in with you for? What are they bringing with them? It's great that you can be the business mind, but if they're bringing in money, okay, great. Then they're bringing in money, or they're bringing in technical know-how, or they're bringing in a contact list or something like that, then great. But if they're just kind of there glomming off of you, then that's not good. And before you even get into business, you may want to think, what do you need this person for, before you figure that out later on. And then, they've got their hand out looking for 50%.
Yeah. I experienced that with my first partner of our first multi-million-dollar company. When we started, I was the business brains and part of the financier. He knew how to do the business. That he was working for the business, and we were creating a competitor, or not a competitor, a one to serve the business, but we knew the competitors. And so he thought he knew more about business than I did. So we started arguing very early on about billing. And one of the things I'd copied from a competitor that we were building against was billing every 2 weeks instead of every 30 days, because they were the largest servicer in our market, and they were billing every 2 weeks. And being in business before, I understood the importance of cash flow, because, you can bill all you want and do all the work you want and make all the quote unquote revenue you want. But if you don't collect it, doesn't mean shit. Yeah. And when you're a startup, cash is king, that burn rate and everything else. Yeah. And so I said, okay, we're going to go ahead and bill every 2 weeks. And he was like, you can't do that. The rule of the law is you got to bill every 30 days. I'm like, there's no rule that says that. And, the initial arguments that we had in our business, I finally sat down with him and I said, look, we're going to change the thing. I'm the leader of this company. I'm the CEO. I have far more experience than you. And I want 51% of this company, or it shuts down now. And you take 49. I've been friends with them most of my life. And I said, me, but I can't be sitting and arguing with you over shit that you don't know and you don't understand, even if I explain it to you, because you think that's the way it should be because someone else did it that way. And that was really important, because after that, we didn't have to argue about stupid shit anymore, because my rule was the law, and I had the experience to back it up. Don't do that if you don't have the experience to back it up. But in the end, it bit me after 13 years, but we had a good run.
At least you had a good run.
Yeah. We were like, the band that breaks up after every 10 years.
Some people don't have any run, so at least you had a good run.
Exactly, yeah. But that's a good example of, really assessing your partner and their business acumen, I think. The other thing I want to ask you about while I've got you on the line is, this is something that I discovered too with partners. I don't know if performa is the right word, but performa agreements. Some of the problems I always had in my companies is I'm that type A alpha CEO leader, big mouth, all the things, right? And usually my best partner is somebody who will do rudimentary shit. I'm the visionary, I'm the innovator, but I don't do rudimentary stuff. I don't do the same accounting over and over again. It's needed, but I just don't, that's not my key point. And so having a partner for a lot of times who is the opposite of me, who can enjoy doing that. But if you asked him to do anything visionary, you'd be like, hey, can you come up with some ideas? And they just draw a blank. But if you give them a task, they can do it over and over again really well. And if they're a business partner, hopefully you can trust them, which I did. And I think he trusted me for a long time. And but when it really came to what was driving value in the company, it was me. And there really wasn't a pro forma between us that we should have worked out, saying if one person drives more income or does more work or is working more longer hours, I was the guy who was always taking stuff home. I was always working weekends in the office. He was doing none of that. And when he left the company after 13 years, I literally replaced him. I went from somebody I was paying $40,000 a month to someone who I replaced with a $2,500 secretary. That's how much work was being done by him in our company, and how irreplaceable it was. And I just sat there just going, why have we been paying this guy all this money all these years? And so performa-wise, is that something you should analyze or maybe put into contract? If I'm going to do X amount of work and get paid in direct proportion, and if you don't do X amount of work, maybe, we renegotiate this thing?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely in any operating agreement for an LLC or your bylaws for your corporation, whatever. I mean, you should put in what the people do.
Yeah.
And have, if it's not in those documents, have it say that it's going to be in a separate set of documents that you then can, reevaluate as time goes on or whatever. But yeah, it should definitely be reduced to writing. It should spell out, Chris is the thought visionary person and he does this. And then Chris is, sidekick does this. And if they don't do this, then this happens and things like that. So yeah, it should definitely be in there and should be spelled out.
Yeah. And that way in court, you're covered, right? You've had litigation for probably stuff like this before.
Yeah. I mean, if you either did it or you didn't do it. If you didn't do it, you're in breach of contract.
Yeah. And then if it's not written, then, it's just open-ended and hearsay. And people I've heard judges say, that's cute, but you don't have a contract.
Correct. It goes back to what we were talking about with the 70-30 thing before. It's whatever your word versus their word.
Yeah.
He's going to show up and say, Chris said he's going to do all the work and just pay me because he loves me. So
do you, in your experience, I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, 20 plus years. In your experience, do you ever see any partnerships that really survive into perpetuity or is it just a matter of time?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say I've seen long-term business affiliations between people, but I would say at the end of the day, pretty much everything has an ending. Yeah. I mean, whether it's acrimonious or whether it's harmonious or whatever. I mean, I don't think, there's very few businesses that go on forever in its original intent and its original form, its original cast. I mean, it's like a TV show that goes on for a long time. The cast, people come and go and whatever, and that's kind of how most business organizations are, other than like the alpha or the owner or whatever, or the head honcho. The supporting cast comes and goes, and a lot of time in business, the partner or the business affiliate or whatever, they tap out, they sell out, they get bought out, they get, kicked out. And, I would say for the most part, that's probably a true story. That's probably not true. So that is a true story.
Yeah. All the more for my rule then. You just cemented the rule. I'm going to make a monument to it now. The rule of if you don't know it, if you don't control it, don't do it. I don't know. I mean, if you're an investor and you're investing in, some Silicon Valley startup, I get it. But for me, most of my stuff is about me and my money and usually a partner and whatever I'm building. And I like the tinkering and control of it. But it's kind of like, people just don't always get along. And sometimes over time, things changes. My big partnership fell apart because I got Yoko Ono by his girlfriend. Yeah. She came in and was like, you don't need him. You can do your own thing. You can make your own money. Yeah, he tried that for 2 years after and failed miserably.
Yeah, hit with Yoko Ono instead of Linda McCartney. So
yeah, exactly. There's a joke there somewhere, but I'm not going for it.
I don't know. It's a pretty good metaphor I came up with.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. But maybe I should just go into partnership with vegans from here on out. Maybe there's the Linda McCartney joke. Rest in peace. She's a wonderful lady, I'm sure. And so is Mr. McCarthy. Paul McCartney. Did I say Carthy? Okay. It's Monday, folks, even though it's Thursday here at the Chris Voss Show.
Well, you get the wear and tear of an entire week behind you. So it's Thursday evening. You got a lot of miles on you from this week.
Then I'm pretty sure I'm mid-stroke at this point. So
yeah.
What haven't we talked about maybe that you want to let people know that you do, and some of the services you offer, or maybe some of the topics that you think are current in today's environment?
Sure. So if you want, we can talk about the effect of technology, particularly AI, on business.
Oh, let's do. That's a favorite subject.
No.
What are you seeing in your end of the woods?
I can tell you from me personally, I love AI. I use it in my actual law practice. I use it in my actual business, running my business and things like that. I love it. It's great. It's the greatest thing that's ever happened. However, I am responsible for it. I take control over it, and I make sure I quality control, vet, and check everything that it sends out before it does anything. And that's what the issue with AI is that people just kind of blindly hit print, hit send, and let it go out in the world. And when bad things happen, I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the moral of the story, is that I think AI is great for any business of any size, any point in their life. I mean, there's AI for everything. But, you got to make sure that at the end of the day, you're in charge. You're the person who's in charge. You got to make sure what you're putting out there is correct and useful.
Yeah. I learned that the hard way. I had my first AI muck up, I guess. I don't know what you call it, last week. So I shoot a lot of models and I do a lot of photography. I do street photography, model photography. I do everything. I love photography. And so we'll usually hire models to do a portfolio shoot at a studio and stuff like that. And one of the gals that I shot with before, she'd seen an ad that I was running for new models to expand my portfolio. And I've already shot her, so I'm trying to broaden the portfolio. And she wrote me and said, "Hey, Chris, I'd really like to do that job. I think we're offering like $200 for an hour or two to show up and photograph." She's like, "I really would like to do that job." And I was in a podcast like this, and I have a giant camera that fits over the screen. That's kind of why my head's always bobbing around. And looked at her email, and I swear to my life, I typed out, and pretty sure I saw it, but I saw that I typed out, "I'm trying to expand my portfolio. Yeah, sorry, we'll shoot you another time." If you got the new Gmail, it's got that Gemini crap, and I haven't figured out how to install it. But if you hit the wrong key, which I think is usually a backslash or /, it will auto populate the thing. It did that without me noticing it behind the screen that I hit the keyboard or something. And I sent her a message, say, "Great, we have you booked. We'll give you $200. It's for next week on whatever, that," and sent the email. I thought I sent a different email that I had typed out, but the automator overran it. A couple days later, she writes me just all excited and so elated that she got the job. I really need the money. And, she's a great gal. And I had to let her down. And I had to realize that I just got fucked by AI.
Yeah.
And it's because I didn't do what you said. Make sure that you qualify it before it ever goes out.
No.
And double check it.
No, that's at least at max. It only costs you upsetting her and maybe $200. I mean, my industry has been ravaged by AI because these attorneys are, there's a lot of lazy attorneys, a lot of whatever you want to say, who just, cut and paste whatever AI they're using sends, and they file it with the court, and then the court and the opposing counsel say, "What the hell is this?"
Yeah.
And they've been sanctioned, a lot of embarrassment, public censure, sanctioning, monetary fines, bar grievances, all kinds of stuff, because these attorneys just take what's given to them, don't check it, and just file it. And now, you've got serious legal consequences that go with it. So my industry's probably been hit harder than most industries regarding AI stuff because of the, the high stakes and whatever. But there's a huge movement now of people trying to make up for it and try to, quality control stuff. But, it's the same thing with any business. I mean, the AI is great. It's a force multiplier. It does everything, but you got to make sure you're in charge of it.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. It was a very minimal mistake, but it was a very powerful lesson. I'm glad I learned it on something that wasn't, world changing or a big deal or, thousands of dollars or whatever, business deal. Yeah, I'll send you $10,000 or something. It types out,
Right, you're lucky it didn't respond to the Nigerian Prince email or something.
Oh yeah, here's my bank account. Go ahead and dip into there. Yeah, that's really interesting. You guys have had that widespread. I remember seeing the first report of the first attorney, at least that made the news, I guess, where he used ChatGPT to for his plea or his response, whatever they submitted to the court, and that did not go well.
No, there's all, I'm a big LinkedIn troll, and I get my feed all day long of just people getting sanctioned left and right.
Wow.
And stuff, and they just haven't learned yet.
Yeah, and it's got to be embarrassing as a law firm because you look kind of incompetent. It's like you can't just draw that stuff up, and people's lives sometimes are on the line. With what you're doing, this isn't, especially if you're doing criminal law, I guess, and putting people on death row or murder.
Yeah, someone's liberty is at stake, and you're citing hallucinated stuff or whatever. So,
and I've had ChatGPT lie to me. So people can work with you. They can work with you across the nation, if I understand that correctly, in advisory and stuff. How do they consult with you or find out if they're a fit for your service?
Sure. They just reach out to me, go to my website, fornarolegal.com, shoot me an email, call me, send me a message, text me, reach out to me on social media, read if you want any cool information that's not hallucinated or whatever, you can go on my website. I got tons of blogs and videos and all kinds of stuff for resources for people in business, wherever they are.
Thank you, Matthew, for coming on the show and giving us some great answers and making me more believe in the crazy shit I believe in. If you don't know, you don't control it.
It's not so crazy. It's true.
Yeah, it really is true. And I mean, I think you have to vet your partner's. I think you have to vet your partner's character. I think if there was one thing I would do, and going back now, is I would vet their character. What are their skills at? Because the things we learned about me being a visionary and him being a rudimentary sort of person, we just kind of fell into that. We didn't plan that at all. No. And I think in the future I would. It was a great partnership for 13 years until Yoko Ono showed up. Yeah. But that's having the Beatles, baby.
I'll tell you, when I talk about partnership, I don't want to get too off topic, but you look at the breakup of my favorite duo of all time, Hall and Oates, and if you read what each one of them says, it's very similar to your story.
Yeah. Who would have ever thought those guys who wrote all those lovey songs would fall out of love?
Exactly, man. I'm glad I saw them in concert 3 times because they're one of my favorites. Even though I'm a child of the '80s, so they were number one when I was around. But yeah, it's very interesting to see their business relationship fall out and what they each have to say about their business and things like that. So
hopefully they kiss and make up, and we'd all like to see them on stage. Probably sounds like you're a fan. I'm a fan. I mean, I grew up in the '70s and '80s too, where they pretty much ruled the radio. Like every other song was one of theirs because they had such a huge library of hits. And I think it was them and Steely Dan pretty much 24/7, and then some disco crap. Yeah. So you just So Matthew, thank you for coming on the show. We really appreciate it. Thanks for my audience for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTok, and Chris Voss on Facebook and YouTube. Be sure to be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
Hey, Matthew. Great show, man. Great job.